In this tutorial, we are going to learn how to create Java servlets. In one of the previous tutorials on Tomcat, uh, we had seen how JSPs get converted into servlets, but here we'll code up servlets from scratch. And all of the code used in this tutorial is available at this URL. github.com/increv/employee app. So you can clone it locally or also browse it online. The first step is to have the right set of dependencies. And I'm going to do copy paste of the required dependencies. Uh, so we need Java X Servlet API and the latest version because it provides some interfaces and Java annotations to make servlet programming super easy. Now, once you have done this, let's create a class. Let's say hello world servlet, and this extends HTTP servlet. Now, servlets provide four methods uh, to get, okay, uh, then to post, uh, I'm not getting it. 1 second. So to post, well, we'll have a look at it later. And then we can have to put and to delete. So these are equivalent to your CRUD operations. So this is for creating, uh, then this is for retrieving, updating, and deleting. So basically four interfaces to do your CRUD operations, basically reflecting the basic uh, CRUD operations available on your databases. Uh, and I'll just remove this warning. Uh, Now, once we have this, uh, we need to tell it the path within the Tomcat context. So let's say if our our context is employee, or our web application is called employee in Tomcat, maybe we want to serve the data, let's say on say hello path. And the way you tell it to Java is by first having the add web servlet annotation. Its name could be hello world. Description could be sample servlet, and URL pattern could be hello world. Okay, all of this will start making sense when we create the war and deploy. And as we are speaking about the war file, in your POM, you should have packaging as war. So war stands for web archive. It's nothing but a zip file which contains all your classes which are implementing the servlets. Okay, so we have implemented this do get, but we have not done anything with it. And we are just going to say that my response dot content type is text HTML, and I'm getting the writer to which I can write. I'm just writing hello world over here. Okay, so once we have done this, let's try to compile it. So we have a web build variable, web XML attribute is required. So this can be fixed by giving a property uh, definition like this: fail on missing web XML form. So essentially, web XML is another way uh, to describe your servlets to Tomcat. Uh, but since we are using annotations to do that, uh, that hey, this is a servlet, it extends HTTP servlet so that we can get your request and response objects, and it's available on this path. We don't need web.xml. So that's how we tell Maven how to ignore missing web.xml. Let's run once again. All right, it's all built now. Um, and where does this go? So if we go into the target folder, I get my employee app snapshot.war, and all of these versions are coming from over here. So let's just rename this to employee app.war. Okay, and let's copy it in my Tomcat. My Tomcat server is already running. So D drive, and in the Tomcat, I already have this war file, so I'll remove it and I'll paste this war. And if you see, a folder gets created over here. This is called exploding the war, and inside it webinf classes. My servlet class appears over here. Now if I go to localhost 80 employee app and then say hello, I think it was say hello. Oh, hello world. So employee app is my context path or my application path, and then within that is my servlet path. If I do this, it says hello world. Okay. Let's try changing this to, let's say, hello incref. We'll build once again. And again rename this to employee app, copy it over to Tomcat web apps. I'll just replace this, and Tomcat will re-explode it automatically. And if I just refresh it, well, maybe, yeah. So it re-exploded it and I got hello incref. Now, now we have do get do post. So let's see. I think I should be able to just copy all of these as it is. Let's see if at overwrite works over here. Yeah. So I'll just keep copying. Keep copying, and I'll just put at override to see if I'm implementing the right interfaces. There you go. Do delete. All right. Uh, Now let us say if we want to create an employee app where we can register employees. Uh, we can get the values as string name equal to request dot get parameter. Let's say name, ID as ID, and let's say age as age. All right, and we want to put it into our database. So I'm going to do a whole bunch of pasting code from the previous examples. Um, we we had this employee hibernate API. So I'm just going to copy all of this stuff over here, and Obviously, I'm not getting these libraries because I don't have these in my POM file. I'm just going to copy these dependencies also. Okay. Uh, there you go. So you can learn more about all of these APIs, etc., Hibernate APIs in the previous tutorials, or you can just simply check this code out from Git. And I can have a class over here, let's say private static employee Hibernate API, and I can initiate this in my constructor, public hello world servlet. Then I'll just call super if there are any super initializations, basically calling the super constructor, and API equal to new employee Hibernate API. Okay, and we had a method called API dot insert employee pojo. So I'll create a local field pojo, and now it throws some exceptions. So let's surround with try catch, and then let's do throw new servlet exception error saving object, and then E. Okay, then you can do p dot set age, p dot get set id, p dot set name. Okay, and id here is string, so I can do integer dot value of id, and age as integer dot value of age, basically constructing my strings into integer values, and here I'm able to insert it. Okay, then uh, in in order to connect to the database, we also had these properties files. So we'll need to place it at a suitable location. We'll have to discover it. Let's see. I think these properties files, which tell my web application how to connect to the database, will go into here. Maybe not here. Maybe in the bin folder, because which is where Tomcat is starting for. So it will look for the properties file over here. Let us see if this works. And before I move forward, let me just delete things from here, from my table. All right. So set as default table. Delete from employee pojo where id is less than 5. All right. So we don't have anything in our table now. Cool. Yeah, I think that should do it. But let us see. So let's build our war file. Okay. Let's copy our war file. So again, rename this, and I'll copy this, enter Tomcat. So let's do one thing. Let's first stop Tomcat, and then let's delete all the logs. So if there are any errors, we can read them from the log file. Start service, go into my web app. I'll just remove my war file, original war file, and paste the new one. Okay. um yeah, I think this should work. Let's see if our do get method works. Yeah, so it is working. Now how do I post it? Well, typically you use a proper web application user interface to post, but let's try Postman. And so you can install Postman. Just Google it up, install it, and let's try to make a new collection over here called employee app. And in this collection, I will add a request. So let's say post employee app post. Okay, so our method should be post. Request URL was hello world, and then we have our body. We need form data, and we're putting name, age, and ID. So let's say name is Romel Jan, age is 30, and my ID is 2. Let's see if it works. Well, there is some pretty bad error that happened. Um, Let me try to debug this first. Okay, so I debugged uh, the application. So I was missing a few things. Let me just put that again. So first of all, I need my Hibernate uh, config XML, because I just copied this code from the previous example, and we're not going to use our properties file because Hibernate is using connection properties from config.xml. Number one. Number two, uh, we needed to call the configure method to Hibernate to create the session factory. Uh, so what I did was, in the static method, uh, sorry, in the static block of our servlet class, I just called Hibernate configure, and here itself I just initialized my employee Hibernate API. So let's yeah, and the third thing is that in my post method, I used XWW form URL encoded. So again, these are just some nitty-gritties of HTTP method invocations. Uh, I was showing you how to use form data, but we don't need these. We just need XWW form URL encoded. So let me just clean my system. I'll just delete the war file. Okay. And then let me show you how it all works. So I'm calling maven clean install. Okay, and now I have my war file over here. Rename this, and I'll just copy it over in my web apps. The var should get exploded. Here it is. Let's try the get method. Okay, this works. Let's try the post method with all of these values. So this time I got status 200. Okay, it's a HTTP status code, and let's see my database, and I got ID 3, age, name, everything in my employee Pojo table. Let's try with, let's say, Rajul with ID 4, send, and if I refresh this, I see this in my database. A couple of things about the war file, that now that it got exploded, all my Hibernate config file got copied over here, and my classes are all over here. Then if I go into the lib folder, all the dependencies got copied over here. And so Tomcat knows uh, that all the libraries and classes that we coded are in specific location. And for a web application like employee app, it constructs the class path accordingly, and everything works beautifully. Okay, now let's say if I wanted to now get an employee or delete an employee. Let's try to build a full-fledged application. So let's call our path as /employee. Okay. Uh, let's say we want to get an employee, so we can do something like employee pojo p equal to api dot select id. How do I get the id? Uh, uh, int id equal to request dot get parameter id, and then we want integer dot value of over here. Okay, excuse me, and this might throw an exception. I can just say error retrieving object, and now we need to print this back to the browser. So I can do let's just print the name. How dot print ln. Okay, name as p dot get name first, then we need a new line. Okay, and let's copy this code over. So name, age, id. All right. Then incref employee, we just do an h1. All right, this should work in theory. Let us see, and let's also implement the delete method. Okay, and we can output that employee deleted. Okay, and api dot delete id. don't need to save any value over here, and put I don't know if we have to here Pojo select all delete. Yeah, we don't have an update method over here, so I'm just going to skip that for now. All right, so let's build this again. Let's repeat the exercise of deploying the war file. Again, note that we don't need our properties file in the bin folder, so I'm going to remove that too. I'll just remove all the logs. Stop service. Okay. Start service. And then rename my war file and copy it into Tomcat. Okay, so again, let's delete the database rows. Now let's try to post an employee. Let's say employee 1, age is 30 and ID is 1. So the war file is still not deployed. Let's see. Oh, the path changed to employee. So we got our page. Here it should be employee. So we got our status 200. We got the employee in our database, and so we are using Postman to do the post methods, but here now I need to do ID equal to 1, and so I'm doing a get method, and I got all my employee details. So let's post again something to Postman. Let's say employee 2, and let's try to get that employee. I got my employee 2 details. And if I want to do delete, I can't do it directly from the browser. Let's try to do it from Postman. It's going to be a delete method slash employee question mark ID equal to 1. Okay. We don't need any of these things in the body. Yeah. Let's call it employee app delete. Let's try this. Employee deleted. Let's look in the database. I just have employee with ID number 2. So all my 3 methods are working. It's a bit tedious. A lot can go wrong. Let's say, what if you didn't provide the ID value over here? How do you handle all such checks? And which is why we'll slowly move towards Spring, where all of these uh, configurations become easy. But there's still few more tutorials on user interface, etc. before we move on to Spring. But this is how you create your servlet, and you can implement all of these methods uh, under the hoods. If you just implement, let us say, a method called public void update, okay, um, int id throws SQL exception, and then let's say if you're taking some values over here, okay, so uh, so you can implement this method. The way you will do it is, again, you'll create an employee pojo, and you can do um, uh, API dot update id comma p. All right, no, okay, all right. So I'll just say p dot get id over here. So it's an integer, an error updating object, um, and you just need to implement this method under the hood. I'll do it behind the scenes, and you can just retrieve this code from this git location, and that's basically how you implement the servlets. Thank you.